But of course, I think Gotham is somewhere here, my publisher, and when Westland had to publish the Rosabal line in 2008, Gotham, turned around and told me, Ashwin, this is all very well. We've signed a contract with you, but just imagine, what happens when someone comes to meet Mr. Sean Higgins and they see a pot-bellied Marwadi businessman out there. So this is just not going to work from the point of view of theatrics. This ain't going to work. So that was the end of Sean Higgins.
Well, Sean Higgins could have been a pot-bellied Marwadi businessman. Nowadays, names are very, very interchangeable. So, what is your, shall I say, obsession with the past? Because in all the three books,
yes,
you have gone into the past and going on with Rosabal line. You were talking of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Then Chanakya's chant.
Yeah.
And now here, though you have a modern day thriller, but you keep going back to Krishna.
Yeah. I think the past it just fascinates me. I mean, the way I look at it is that if I was to take the two words, history, and if I was to add to it the word myth, and try and coin a word out of those two independent words, I'll end up with mystery. Myth plus history is mystery. And that fascinates me. For me, the thrill of a thriller doesn't come from the event that is happening, but the event that it is related to. Something that's ancient, something that has happened many, many years ago. For me personally, each and every book that I have written has been a voyage of discovery. It enables me to also become one with my roots, as it were. I have always found that the journey has been much, much more interesting than the destination. I feel rather depressed when I finish writing a book because that love affair has come to an end, as it were. The past holds so much of promise for me, and as they say, those who don't understand their own history are condemned to repeat it. Hopefully the way I look at it is that this is an exploration, not just for my reader, but it's an exploration for myself.
Okay. You have made, you have a disclaimer in the beginning.
Yeah.
Which says that all this is fiction, and also that you have speculated, you've done hypothesis. It should not be taken as kind of gospel truth.
Absolutely.
But what is fact and what is fiction?
Okay.
Because you've gone into, for example, he says, one of the characters says that nuclear energy existed in India 5,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Stem cells were known to India.
Yeah.
Plastic surgery was known, and cloning was known.
Yes.
And the evidence for cloning is that Ravan didn't actually have 10 heads, but there were 10 Ravans who were cloned. Now,
well, for me what is interesting is, and I think the reason why I always choose to call my books fiction is because at the end of the day, I do not want to be writing under the limitations of non-fiction. As a non-fiction writer, you can only say what is absolutely the gospel truth. On the other hand, what I want to do is I want to weave interesting stories. If there are nuggets which help me make that story more real, then I'm happy to use them, but not to the exclusion of fiction. For example, with the Krishna key, the book starts with a discussion that takes place regarding the river Saraswati, the mythical river Saraswati. And in the last, I think, 20 odd years, it has now been proven that the Saraswati did exist. In fact, the riverbed of the Saraswati has been discovered by satellites. Not only that, but they've even discovered channels running under the ancient riverbed, where they've discovered, where they've done radiocarbon dating of the waters in order to indicate how long ago that river stopped flowing. So when I talk about the Saraswati River, I'm not talking about something which is off the top of my head. I'm talking about something which is very real. Similarly, for example, we've had studies done by Professor Narhari Achar, who has actually studied the Mahabharata in order to find out what were the astronomical observations on the date when the Great War took place. And we know that there were three very clear-cut celestial signs as they were. So now again, that is not something...
Now, can you just go into that in detail? Because I found that fascinating.
Yeah.
And I also want to know from you whether that is fact.
Yeah, of course. Well, what is fact is the fact that that study has been done and it came to that conclusion. So
Can you explain what are the 3 dates you're talking?
Yeah, well, basically what was done by Professor Achar was that he mapped out all the possible dates on which the particular, in the Mahabharata there is the reference that sage Vyas goes to meet Dhritarashtra, and he tells Dhritarashtra that this war is going to vanquish everyone, it's going to be a disaster. And he says that the reason why I know it's going to happen like this is because I have seen the signs. And he talks about 3 very specific astronomical events. He talks about certain planetary formations. Now, those planetary formations have been taken by physicists and astronomers, and in particular the study which was done by Achar, where he actually recreated the night skies going back almost around 8 to 10,000 years in order to find out as to which were the dates on which those particular observations could have happened from Kurukshetra.
All 3 signs coincided.
Exactly.
On one
So
day.
in fact, if you looked at one event, there were actually more than 180 dates. If you tried to combine it with the second event, you came down to something like around 20 or 25 odd dates. And by the time that you were trying to combine all the 3 observations, you were left with only 2 dates, of which one could be easily removed on account of certain climatic conditions. So as a result of which you'll end up with that date of approximately 3200 odd BC. So now that's something which has not come off from the top of my head. That is something which is based on a very clear research study done. Similarly, I think that, for example, the possibility that Krishna could himself have been a historical character, I think that there are enough stories which talk about the fact that Krishna himself is referred to not just in the Mahabharata, but is referred to in multiple different sacred texts, including the Rig Veda, including the Chandogya Upanishad. So to imagine that there wasn't a character by that name again strikes me as being odd. So what I have done is basically I've picked up what I considered to be the historical and mythological markers. Anil, when I normally work on a book, the first 8 or 9 months will be purely reading and research. And at the end of that 8 or 10 months, I will land up with probably something like maybe around 200 or 250 historical markers. I consider those to be pretty much the columns and beams of my construction.
But tell me, before you start on that research, you have decided on a storyline and the subject, or you can't do research at random? Obviously.
No. What I would normally have prior to my research is a very, very vague idea of the storyline. Because unfortunately, to a very great extent, let me tell you, it's a catch-22 situation. If you don't have a storyline, you don't know what to research. But if you don't have the research, your storyline doesn't end up getting developed. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg story.